The Banu Merchantman is an interesting one for us. It's been around for a long time. People are waiting. People are really hoping for the ship to come out soon. And it's had some concept art done on it. It's had first round. And now that it's sort of going into production, we need more. We need more time.
Got a question for you. I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but they voted it. I'm posing it to you. The question is simply, any news at all about the Banu Merchantman?
The Merchantman. So a little bit of bad news in that it's unfortunately not on the active ship development schedule for 2018.
Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is Sad Ship Updates. Yeah, the Banu Merchantman, it appears, has been pushed off the schedule for 2018. Now, of course, I had to put that video there at the beginning to show people that, yes, at one point, we were seeing the interior, or the first interior blockouts of the Banu Merchantman. We were excited, we were happy because it was finally happening. And, they had shown us some new concept art, and it kind of looked like things were coming together, and they did say the words "in production." So we kind of assumed in production. Now, of course, this all came about around the time of the anniversary sale. In fact, this was one of the videos promoting the different ship days on the anniversary sale. This was for the alien ships, of course, the Banu Merchantman. They talked a little bit about the Defender again, but not so much because of the Defender issues. But now it appears that the Banu Merchantman is no longer moving forward and has been set aside for the time being. Now, of course, we all know the design process is kind of a fluid one and things change. Of course, the Cutlass Red and the Cutlass Blue had been set aside for the Constellation Phoenix, and we're not exactly sure when those will restart, because who knows at this point. And once the Connie Phoenix is done, something else might get pushed to the forefront, a ship to go along with a specific system in the game. Though we are, of course, we have refueling ships, we have cargo ships, we have salvage ships, hopefully by the end of March. We are going to have mining ships, or well, actually we do have a mining ship. We're going to have mining hopefully by June. So, a lot of these ships kind of tend to follow the systems that go into the game. And the Merchantman being a cargo ship, we technically already have cargo ships. So you can kind of see how it didn't make it in. But at the same time, the Banu Merchantman being in production and the Banu Merchantman not being in production, and people asking questions about the Banu Merchantman and not finding answers, has become something of a meme within the history of the game. And of course, made a couple of videos about that over the years, to some applause and to some derision, but that is just the nature of the game. Now, is this necessarily a bad thing? Well, if you want to take the absolute bright side point of view on this, every ship that we are currently flying in Star Citizen, or pretty much every ship, because ships like this, the Buccaneer, have come in more or less towards the end. They've reaped the full benefit of many of the systems that have gone into the game, and they've gotten some minor improvements and touch-ups along the way. But most of the early ships that have gone through the pipeline in Star Citizen have had to be put back into the pipeline and then remanufactured. Now, this is pretty much every ship. The 300 series is going to go through this. The Avenger is going through this now. The Hornet series has gone through this. The Cutlass, of course, is a big example, has gone through this. The Constellation, the Freelancer, and on and on and on. Pretty much every ship that you're currently flying that was in one of the original ships that has been sold has been redone at least once over the years. Some have gotten multiple touch-ups. The Banu Merchantman, being further along, or being further down the road on the schedule rather, is probably going to reap a lot of the benefits that a lot of the things that CIG picks up along the way to their destination of making the game. A lot of the lessons they learn are going to benefit the Merchantman in the long run. So it'll probably be a much smoother design and realization process. Now, the truth is, like, we've seen images of the Banu Merchantmans pop up all the time. Now, some of these images, they would say, oh, here's some new images of the Merchantman, but if you were a subscriber, you had probably already seen those the year before in, the subscriber art section where you get little preview images, so you already kind of saw those. And it's always kind of felt that the Banu Merchantman was a ship that CIG has kind of like bounced back and forth on. Like, are we happy with this? Do we kind of want to go and maybe change up the look a bit? And so the art over the years has somewhat changed as the ship has changed, and it's kind of reflected the fact that it seems to always be a concept that's in mid-evolution, that CIG is always trying to find a way to, but they can't quite pick a direct course. They've got to bounce around a little bit in order to get there. It could be very well that CIG developed some art and did some work in late fall, early winter of 2017, and then kind of brought it all together, looked at it, and stepped back and said, you know what? I'm kind of not feeling this design right now. Maybe Chris Roberts just looked at it and said, you know what? It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, and pushed it back and said, I kind of want to take another swing at this, but unfortunately, with the schedule being pretty packed in 2018, the room wasn't there for the ship. And, that's kind of, unfortunately, the reality of game development. But it's a little bit easy to say that, especially to someone who owns a Banu Merchantman. Like, oh, well, that's just the reality of game development. It's very easy. Full disclosure, for someone like me in my position, it would be really kind of crappy for me to say, oh, well, that's just the way it is in ship development, because, the way I've kind of picked and set up the ships that I own, barring any kind of unfortunate incident like this, but it actually seems to be pretty good. Nice landing, Slick. Yeah, barring any of those incidents, I should have everything that I own out of production before the end of this year, so that would effectively put everything that I own in the game. So for me to kind of sit here and comfortably like cross my arms and say, oh, well, that's the reality of ship development, that would be a pretty shitty thing to say. And so, I really do kind of feel what the Merchantman owners are going through, and I definitely wouldn't be like, oh, wow, that's just the way it is. But you can also kind of see CIG's predicament. Of course, they're trying to get as much as possible done as quickly as possible. And if you're building a bunch of Aegis ships, there's going to be a lot of components that cross over, a lot of art assets that cross over between those ships. So you can get a lot of those ships moving a lot faster because there's commonality in between them. There's a lot of stuff that can bleed over. So even though, let's say, you build the Reclaimer, there's probably a certain amount of the Reclaimer that could bleed over into the Hammerhead, so on and so forth. Same thing with Drake. The Cutlass, the Buccaneer, the Herald, the Caterpillar, there's going to be a lot of crossover in between those ships, so it'll make each ship's process of production that much faster, because you're going to have a library of components that you can draw from, hopefully a lot of them, to help get those ships done. Whereas, the Banu Merchantman really is kind of, it's still something that they're trying to work on. There's still something they're trying to nail down the artwork for. And the only ship that it has any commonality with is the Defender. And of course, the Defender, we're probably not going to see the Defender for some time, because it's going to have to kind of go back and have a bit of a rethink, because even though the core ideas behind it, how it does things and how it should work and how it should fit in the universe, were fantastic ideas, the artistic realization was, you know, well, it was not the greatest. So chances are, you know, any real commonality, anything really shared between these ships, you know, both of these ships are things that CIG probably wants to revisit, and they don't have the time to really revisit it while they're trying to produce it. Now, I know, like, a lot of this is going to sound like, oh, well, you're just trying to explain it away, but realistically, if you look at the situation in Star Citizen right now, with the ships that we are getting, like this one here, the Caterpillar obviously currently has issues. There are a myriad of issues, right down to the cargo doors don't even open on the Caterpillar. Okay, the HUD blends in with the luminosity of certain planets to the point where you can't even read it. There's a lot of issues and a lot of lessons being learned, some of which we had warned about, but apparently no one was listening. And a lot of these ships are going to get some minor, or in some cases some major changes, or there's going to be systems brought into the game to kind of correct some of these issues that some of these designs have encountered. There's going to be a lot of lessons learned over the next year to 2 years in Star Citizen as to what, you know, what has practical value, and, you know, some of the concerns that some people brushed aside were actually real and legitimate concerns. And when the Banu Merchantman does get into production, it will benefit from a lot of these lessons being learned. So it's bad news. It sucks. It hurts. It's a kick in the stones. But when the Banu Merchantman does arrive, it's probably going to arrive in a lot better condition and a lot more playable and a lot more fun to fly and to use than many of the ships that we currently have. So that is, I guess, the most upbeat way of looking at the situation. I wish it were different news. I wish we were seeing the Banu Merchantman in production right now. But unfortunately, that is just not the reality. You know, this is, you know, we knew this since Monday, and I kind of thought about doing an episode about it over the week, but I kind of kept dodging away from the topic and trying to think about how am I going to tackle this topic. But I think this is kind of the best way that I found to try and do it. Is, you know, the bright side is that the Banu Merchantman is going to benefit from a lot of the lessons that we're going to be learning over the next year to 2 years, and by the time we get it, it'll probably be a lot better off than most of the ships that we currently have now. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality that we are going to have to live with at this point. So, I mean, in the end, you can't stop the tide from coming in. You can only learn to swim. So, with that, I'm going to end the episode here. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.